This is in loving memory of my children, Sharon and David. You are the light that still guides me. Love never dies, it only transforms. This video book is a story of resilience, of faith, and of rising through unimaginable pain. And so I dedicate this first chapter to my beloved children, Sharon and David. To David, my son who left this world on May 6th, but whose spirit has never left my heart. And to Sharon, my beautiful daughter, who taught me what strength and grace truly mean. You both live in every word that I speak, in every tear that I've cried, and in every lesson I've learned along the way. This is for the two of you, and with all my love. And now, let's begin. Okay guys, this is it. I was born on Thanksgiving Day in 1941, and I was born into a nation that was crippled by the Great Depression, and a world that was already at war, and just 8 days after I was born, Pearl Harbor would pull America into that fight. So the whole world was in chaos. In the United States, things were being rationed. People had lost everything. My mother, who had turned 17 the month before I was born, was nothing more than just a frightened child herself that had brought me into this very uncertain, hard world. I was born at home, where my grandparents' home, which was 4 rooms that they had raised 10 children in. And they were poor dirt farmers, good, hard-working people, but they had nothing. There was no electricity, there was no inside plumbing, there was no running water, nothing. There were no soft blankets, no warm welcomes. I had no balloons that were let off, no little lullabies. It all started, believe it or not, with the sound of hunger throughout the whole world. But life back then was hard for many people. My grandparents were not the only ones that were living like that. Now, since I was born at home, I am pretty sure that my grandmother traded the old doctor who came out in a horse and buggy to deliver me. I'm sure she traded him either a hen with some biddies or some chickens or maybe a little pig or something out of the smokehouse. But I'm sure there was no money exchange because there was none. Now, the doctor, when I was born, the most important thing that I can remember that I was told is that he put drops in my eyes. My eyes started to bleed, and they thought I was going to be blind. Well, I wasn't blind. I was good. I lived with my grandparents, my Uncle Ernest, who was the most wonderful person on the planet, and my Aunt Evelyn, and I had a younger uncle, which I don't remember much about him. He was only 10, my Uncle Bogey. But these were the memories of my first 4 years of my life in that little area where those 4 people lived. My Aunt Evelyn, she would lay me on the porch at night. We had an old lamp flickering, a kerosene lamp that would flicker. And she taught me all the constellations and all the things up in the sky. And she actually was the one that probably was instilled in me the interest in astrology. My grandmother made my clothes out of flour sacks. I remember she used to tell my granddad when he'd go into town, now you pick the one with the little prints on them that's the prettiest, so I can make her little dresses. And she had a Singer sewing machine. And I remember hearing that sewing machine. It had a pedal that her foot would pump up and down. And I remember hearing and laying in bed and listening to her at night. And I think, oh, I'm going to have a pretty little dress tomorrow. And sure enough, I did. Had a pretty little dress out of a flour sack. Now, I loved animals probably because of the farm. I saw my grandmother wean the little biddies. I used to run and chase them. They were so extremely pretty to me. I remember her milking the cow. And I tried to milk that cow, but I never could milk that cow. I don't know why. The horses, the old mules, actually. And that gave me the love of the farm and of animals and the earth itself. My uncle, who was wonderful, he was uneducated. He had no education whatsoever. He never drove a car. He never had any kind of training except working in the fields. And he used to hitchhike into town on Saturdays every once in a while. Now remember, he got paid no money. He lived with my grandparents. We ate food out of the garden and out of the fields. So he had very little money. But he would hitchhike into town some Saturdays. And he would come back from town. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. And he'd walk down the hall, and I'd run behind him because he always brought me something. And he would tease me, and he'd say, "No, Ting, I didn't buy you anything this time. I didn't have you anything." And I could see in his back pocket, he had a little Baby Ruth bar. He always brought me a Baby Ruth from town. And even though he had no money and no way of doing anything, but he loved me enough to always remember to bring me a little Baby Ruth. And when he died, I went to see him when he was dying. And I walked in, and he looked up and smiled, that little smile, and he said, "There's my little Baby Ruth." Now, my mother was a different story. I didn't really know my mother very much. She went to work up in Warner Robins. She went up there with her brother, my Uncle Odell, and my Aunt Louise, his wife, because at that time, all of the able-bodied men had to go to war. They were all called into the draft, and women had to go and take over and work in jobs that were pretty much run by men. And my mother went up there in order to make money for me, so she'd come back on the weekends. And I don't remember much about, bonding with her. I know she would bring me things, and one time she brought me a little gold ring. And I remember I had it for like a day, and I'd take it off, and I'd put it back on. And one day I took it off, and I dropped it down in the grass. Well, I never saw that little ring again. I don't know. It's still down in the dirt of Georgia somewhere, laying there, waiting for me to come back one day and maybe reclaim it. I don't know. But I never did see that little thing again. Those were the memories that I had of these people. I didn't have memories of grandeur. I just remember my aunt who taught me about the stars as we lay on the side of an old wooden floor, finding light in even the darkest of times. Their love, their strength, their simple joys became the roots that held me together. I remember running one time. They missed me from the dinner table. And we remember we had breakfast, dinner, and supper. So we were all sitting around eating dinner, and I got up and left. And they come out and couldn't find me. Well, pretty soon, here my granddad come from way down in the back of the woods back there, had me on his hip, and I had gone to find my granddad because I loved to run behind him when he was plowing with the old wooden plow and old Jack the mule. And I'd run barefoot, and my feet and my toes would get all that dirt in between them, and it just felt wonderful to me. I don't know, even back then, I felt so connected to the earth itself. So this gave me my foundation in my life. This gave me the strength that I would pull from all through my life, all the hardships, all the adversities, everything that I had to face. I learned from them. Well, my mother came one weekend, and she brought this guy with her. Well, first time I looked at him, I did not like him. Now, they say children and animals know people. And I thought, well, maybe I'm just jealous. I didn't really think this because I was only 4 years old or 3 years old. But probably I thought maybe I'm jealous and maybe I don't want to share her. Well, that was not the case. The man really wasn't not a nice man. So she came to me and told me they were getting married and that we were moving to Savannah, Georgia. Now, I remember nothing about that time. It was very traumatic for me. The only place that I had ever known and the only people that I had ever known was on that little farm in the backwoods of Georgia, full of love, full of hard work, full of caring, and I was going to have to leave it. So I don't remember anything about that at all. That's how hard it was for me, I'm sure, in my little mind, because I was really leaving with two strangers. Even if it was my mother, it was a stranger. Now you got to understand something. My mother never told me anything about my birth. I never knew whether she was married when she had me or not. I do know that she got married to my father, and that my father would come and see me, and we went to live with him for a short time, but she left and went back to South Georgia and took me with her, and he paid child support, but she cut that off. She cut him off from seeing me. So I was always led to believe that he never wanted me. But that wasn't the case at all, but I didn't learn that until I was 65, which is a chapter way on down the line. But this started off as something that was hard for me. My life in the beginning was hard, especially once I left the security and that place that I was so used to, where my grandparents, my uncle, and my aunt lived. It was very traumatic for me. And what I do remember is when I did leave, when we left, we went to the beach. And I'll never forget the first time of seeing that ocean. I didn't even know what an ocean was. I'm standing there in a little black bathing suit, one-piece bathing suit. And I guess they were all black at that time. I don't think they had very many colors of anything. But I remember standing there in awe, and the sound of the waves were just huge, and the sight of it was huge. And I found another love from seeing that ocean and the vastness of it, and then laying on the porch with my aunt, seeing the vastness of the night and the sky. And even then, I think I was given the message, there's so much more out there for you. So much more for you, Gloria. And I think it instilled it in me. And we came back from the ocean, but then the dark times began. I wasn't home. I wasn't with my grandparents. I wasn't with my Uncle Ernest with the little candy bars that he brought me, the baby Ruth. My aunt laying on the porch with me at night, so calming. I'd wait for her on the little porch, the old wooden porch, for her to come across the branch coming from school. And I remember the love that I had for these people. And I remember thinking and saying how much I missed them as I lay there that first night away from them. But what they gave me was the strength to endure the next few years of my life, which was very, very hard. And I hope you guys come back next week and join me from the time that I got to Savannah, Georgia, and how my life unfolded. And you know I love you guys. Bye-bye.